So over here on the NA side of things, we're pretty much due for getting the Ooku main interlude, as on the JP server, they got the Ooku main interlude released towards the tail end of the Bakken event, and seeing as today is Monday when this video is going live, we should be getting that Ooku main interlude in like a data download today, unless for whatever reason they want to push it back a week and release it next Monday, but this will at least get you ready for that event to come out. Now, this is going to be more for my newer players that have not played Ooku before and they really don't know what's going on. Maybe they're worried about some of the bosses, all that good stuff. I'm going to go ahead and detail that as someone who has gone through Ooku about like 5 different times at this point. If you're an older player, you're a veteran, you've already done Ooku, you really don't need to watch this video unless you just like the sound of my voice and me explaining things, then by all means, I guess you can stick around. But this is pretty much going to be an event primer for my newer players. Obviously, if you find videos like this helpful, make sure you drop a like in the video, subscribe to the channel, as it does help me out more than you know. And I do normally be dropping FGO videos every single day, although I did forget yesterday because I was way too engrossed in reading Lost Belt 6. I'm sure people that have read that story can understand that sometimes you just get way too deep into a story and then you just kind of lose track of time. But with that being said, let's start off first and foremost of how you're going to get into Ooku. So most of my newer players might be fearing that, oh my goodness, this thing is going to cost me 5 rare mana prisms, and I don't have those. Well, do not fear, because the main interlude Ooku release is going to make it free as long as you have finished Lost Belt 3 and then either Seraph's Second Ballet, which was the rerun that we got the year after Seraph initially released, or if you've done the main interlude for Seraph, which that is available for free when we got the main interlude for Seraph, and you've already completed Solomon. So once you finish Solomon, you can do Seraph, and then once you do Seraph, then you can do Ooku. As you kind of need to understand what's going on in Seraph with that antagonist to really understand what's going on in Ooku with their main antagonist, as they have some kind of ties to one another. Try not to spoil it too much for people that want to read it, because it's an interesting enough read, but in all reality, it is kind of just a prelude to Lost Belt 4, so you can kind of think of it as that way. But aside from getting into the event, there's the actual gameplay for the event, or I don't want to say lack thereof, but Ooku is pretty much well summarized as a clicking simulator. You should have seen me doing that like on screen right now. I should be showing how you kind of navigate through Ooku. You get these lanterns and you use them to go down a certain path, and once you're going down a certain path, you got to keep going until you get another lantern that always gets refunded for you until you reach the end of a path, and then you go down another one. And depending on how good your phone or emulator slash PC is, whatever you're playing FGO on, this might be a little bit grating. Now, it is pretty much a bunch of free materials, but it does seem like the developers are testing your patience to see how much you're willing to sit through to get these free materials. Because half the time you're going down a path and it's maybe some really easy fight that you could just bring any AoE berserker really to, and you can just kind of clean everybody out. And then sometimes you run into the odd story node and you get to continue going down the labyrinth, but it is a bit annoying, but you know, you can't really complain when you're getting a bunch of free materials. That being said, something you might notice when you start getting into these battles is that your Mystic Code has been replaced. So, Kama in this event replaces your Mystic Code with this new one that you get that gets stronger the more you use it effectively. You know, it starts off with some very simple buffs to then being able to give you like a massive battery, bomb a bunch of stars, you get NP damage, you know, you get guts that restores your HP to full, you get a big attack buff, I mean, the whole 9 yards. That being said, your party size is also pretty much fully restricted to only 3 members until about the very end when you're getting into the final fight. Which is not the one that I'm going to be showing here in a little bit. That's going to be the one that you have to do with 3 members, but the final fight is one that you can kind of adjust at your leisure, but do keep that in mind. You can still bring any friend that you want. You know, it's not like Advanced Quest, or it's not like the Tower events where you have to use only your own servants. You are still able to bring in a friend, so you can still get up to your normal shenanigans that you're usually able to do. And the fights do seem to be kind of tailor-made to fit the difficulty of only having 3 party members, but this is a very old event by this point. I mean, this was like, what, year 3 when it originally dropped? We're now in year 7 of FGO NA, so your servants are probably strong enough to handle most of these fights. It really only starts to get difficult towards the very end, which should kind of start popping up right around now, especially the fight against one of the main antagonists, Kama, which I'm sure people pretty much know by now. I don't know why I'm dancing around it, but there is one fight that you have to fight her in her beast form, and you only have 3 members, and it can be a little bit annoying. Full disclosure, I did actually get dropped one time when trying to do this. I was attempting to do it with Krimhild and a waiver Castoria setup, but I just did not have enough sustainability, so then I just decided to double down and go for a double Lady Avalon and Berserker Castoria, who I know we do not have on the NA side and will not have for another year, but realistically, I just wanted to make my life a little bit easier with someone that also had their own survivability. The main gimmick for this is that at the very beginning of the fight, for 3 turns, she will drain your NP gauge to 0 at the end of every turn, which is why you just kind of see me sitting around for 3 turns. She's probably not going to do enough damage to take you out, especially if you don't break this bar. You may be saying, well, let me just try to burst through and just do big battery stuff and try to just break through her bars. But that actually can put you in a little bit of a weird scenario, because then when you start breaking into her second bar, or you break the first bar, I guess, then she starts getting burned on all of her normal attacks, and then it lasts for 5 turns, and then after that, that stacks with the other burn passive, and then now her burns do 50% more damage, and so you kind of want to make sure you're a little bit more established. I just kind of let that thing play out. That way I don't have to deal with them all at the same time. You know, it's a little bit annoying. It does say on stuff like the wiki that it is removed, but for some reason, when I was doing the Crimhild run, it did not get removed, and I still had to deal with that when I was on the second to last bar, so I don't know if it's just written down incorrectly or I just got really unlucky for some reason, but it can be a little bit annoying, but it's nothing you shouldn't be able to get through. If you want some ideas of servants you can try to bring to try to take her down, because she's pretty much like neutral against most attributes, so you're going to want to take advantage of maybe power mods or stuff. She is female, so if you want to bring someone like Jack, who I don't think is the best, but might be able to put some decent damage on her, especially with her being able to refund her NP quite easily with those high hit quick cards, she can be somewhat effective. Just again, maybe don't load up on the double Scotties because you're not really going to have a whole lot of sustainability, and that might lead to you losing the fight. But as you guys heard from the first fight, I did try to use Crimhild because Crimhild has Chaotic Power Mod. Other people that have Chaotic Power Mod would be people like Murasaki or Benny Enma, who we have. And then if you want to try to take advantage of the Evil Power Mod that she has, again, Benny Enma is also very good for that. Charlemagne, I believe, has the crit damage buff on evil enemies, so you could try to crit her into oblivion, which can kind of let you sidestep the whole draining NP thing. If you just want to keep critting her with Charlemagne, that might be able to work. Obviously, Bakken, who just released, is also pretty good for this with her evil power mod. If you have a really strong Vlad extra, I guess you could whip him out, as his NP has built-in evil power mod. Suffice to say, you do have a decent bit of options, even though there are some guys that we don't have right now on the NA side. If you're watching this in the future, there are people like, say, Ivan, when he gets his buff, he gets some power mods. You have Ace the Savior, who has evil power mod. Huyan has evil power mod, etc. We have other options that you could break out. But really, aside from that, the last thing is the main big bad herself in the main fight with Kama, which does function kind of similarly to the Kiara fight, where you're able to adjust how hard you want the fight to be. You can fight Kama at 0%, or you could fight her at 100%, where like the super hard, difficult version of the Kiara fight, she'll have a whole bunch of different bonuses and whatnot. But unlike, say, the Kiara fight, where you can remove all of her passives and then put debuffs on her, Kama is just more or less, you're just removing all of the buffs. You don't really smack her with a whole lot of debuffs. You just make the fight a little bit more manageable. You'll essentially be fighting Kama and her Shadow Clone, and by way more manageable, I mean, like, think of Kama's first HP bar at 0% being 92,000 and her clone being 50,000, as opposed to the 100% where she starts at 707,000 and has a Shadow Clone that almost has 200,000 HP. If you don't feel like challenging yourself on that one, just remove all of her buffs and everything and nerf her into the ground. I should also be showing that right around now as well, where you are able to, adjust the fight to your liking. You'll have to kind of go back into the labyrinth if you want to get more of those little like white paper slips to reduce your power, so you will have to go back down there eventually, but this is pretty much the pinnacle of like difficulty in the fight, and I never really found the main boss fight to be all that difficult. I mean, if I can track it down, I'll link it in the description down below, but there is a Sigurd solo against, I believe it was the 100% Kama. And so if he can kind of get that done, then, you should be able to get something. You should be able to whip a good team together that can take Kama down, especially at 0%. Again, if I can find that, I will link it in the description, but it might be a little hard to track down because it was like a Billy video that a friend was showing me at one point. Suffice to say, though, you can find a lot of like different solos and stuff for Kama if you have a specific servant that you want to use to take her down, but that's pretty much it. You're going to get a whole lot of resources. You'll get a decently interesting story revolving around Kama herself, and then you'll pretty much be done. You get a cool little boss fight and pack it up, go home. So, best of all luck to new masters that are going through this. For old masters, it's going to be a lot of clicking buttons. I'm looking forward to it, I guess. But With all that being said, again, if you found this video to be helpful, make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as I do put out these videos normally every single day, again, when I don't get distracted reading Lost Belt 6, but come on. It's the Morgan story. How am I not going to get distracted by the Morgan story? All right, you got to cut me a little bit of slack. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.